talking about the Fundamentals of Unicult, and we are talking about the chapter Micro and Macrocosm. And I am going to read just a little bit from this chapter for us. All things exist within each other. Your spiritual experience exists within your physical experience and vice versa. The energies of Earth impact you, and you impact them. The entire universe looks like the smallest quark. All is one. The universal truth leads us to understand that the greatest thing you can do to alter your own experience into the best possible experience is to focus on your own consciousness. Your experience is the experience of the universe. Your emotional well-being is vitally important to all. Begin within. So today we're going to talk about that. It's something that's hard to understand. I think the first time that I understood this, I was a child, and I watched the popular movie Men in Black. And in Men in Black, at the end, there's a whole universe inside of a marble. Do you guys remember that? Did it blow your mind like it blew my mind? That conception of how everything could actually be very tiny blew my little brain, and I realized that we are interacting in a way that is energetically connected. It's not so much about separation. It's not so much about size. It's about the energy of reality. It's about how you could, if you have heard of these quantum ideas of quantum entanglement, it's the idea that once two particles are on the same energy, they could be separated across all of time and space, and whatever happens to one will happen to the other. It's like a parallel situation. So when you start to realize these possibilities for quantum entanglement, you start to see how the microcosm and the macrocosm actually work. Everything is actually energetically layered. A lot of times we talk about how scales on like octaves are this quantum entanglement. So this idea that we have a C here and a C here, that they are energetically connected. They might be different levels, different versions of the reality, but they're the same reality. So everything that we have going on in our bodies and our energy and our cells, even on the scientific understanding, on the physical understanding, on the energetic understanding, is a reflection of the things that are happening in the biggest way. You might say, Unicole, how does this help me? How is this ever going to benefit me at all? What a wacky thing to just think about. Why do I care? Because your ability to understand your own emotional state, your ability to understand the fact that your consciousness is this quantum entanglement with God, with the highest energy. I call God the highest energy. It can be whatever you want to think about it as. If you can think about God in a Christian way and that makes you happy, then do that. I don't think about it that way. I think of God as the highest energy from that which all life is, that from which all life flows, that from which all things are connected and tied to. So there's a higher version of everything. So you're here, and then there's a higher energy here. And there's even a higher energy, and it just keeps going up and up and up. So the highest possible octave of light is what I conceptualize. And that energy holds the space for the manifestation of all the lower octaves of light. So when I think of myself as a conscious entity interacting in a very dense world called Earth, a very dense three-dimensional world. So I was just thinking about an internet comment that made me mad. God. Okay. When I think of myself as the highest energy interacting in this physical world, I think of myself as translating as high of octaves as I can into this physical body, into these physical words, into these very limiting ways of expressing myself to you, into my appearance, into my clothes, into my, language, into my speech, into my books, into my products that I sell. How can I take the highest conscious understanding and infuse it in this way that people on this planet will understand? And that's holy work. There's nothing wrong with taking higher energy and translating it into lower octaves of light so that people can understand you. Some spiritual people, they say, I only want to live up here, and that's great, you're affecting the world, but you might not be able to reach people. If it's in your heart, if it's in your mission to reach people and to communicate with people, you might need to ground yourself. You might need to come down a couple octaves in order to figure out, hey, how are you understanding this version of light? And that's why in Unicult, we don't talk about black and white, other than it being something that we only perceive. This is a rainbow. It's a density. So, the same color up here is going to be, it's just, this, like, if you go down low enough, and something's so dense, and it's just like pain, right? And you're like so in so much pain, you feel like you have to like murder someone. That's just a super dense version of another form of connecting with people. So if you can take this energy, which is inside your own consciousness, where is your consciousness at? Do you want to punch people who make you mad? Do you want to burn things down? Do you want to destroy things? Do you want to yell at people? These are all valid forms of expression. These are all valid experiences of light, but they are the farther down you get in negative emotions, the farther away from God you are. That can be a toxic way to think. And the whole thing about Unicult is figure out a way to think about these things in a way that really helps you. If you're really down in the dumps and you're really depressed and you're like, well, I'm so far away from God, and that makes you sad and that makes you not want to figure out your own emotions, then don't believe it. But for me, the way that I conceptualize of this, I understand that when I'm aligned with my own positive energy, I have the compass inside my own heart. If I'm feeling, if I'm spiraling out in negative emotions and hopelessness, I know that I'm going in a direction that doesn't serve me. I know that I'm going in a direction that hurts me. So for me, it's beneficial to figure out how to understand, love, and transmute those energies so that I can rise into higher states of consciousness. You can't just pretend like, oh, none of this matters, I'm just fine now, and stop those thoughts and stop that violence and stop that pain. This is transmutative energy. And the reason why we're talking about this right now with the idea of micro-macro source is the fact that any transmutational energy that you do in your soul from going from here, and you have to work through it, and it's so hard until you finally get to a higher octave of light, that is divine. That's your divinity. That's your ability to raise your own energy into a higher state of being. And guess what happens when you raise your own energy into a higher state of being? It affects everyone. It affects everything. We are all one. This is true in a quantum sense. This is true in an energetic sense. If you're having trouble with these concepts, just think about the fact that we live on a water-based planet. I use this example all the time because it's literally true. We live in a little marble that's water-based, and we've got oceans and we've got rain, so think about it like a bucket of water. If you've got a drop of poison and you put it into a bucket of water because you want to poison just this part of the bucket of the water, it's not going to work. It's going to go through the whole system. And we know that we can use water as an understanding of energy because water is all connected and it merges with itself and it carries its own energy into the whole world. The fish and the whales and the dolphins are very good at helping us transmute our energy in the water. But what I'm trying to say is if you have bad energy and you're radiating it out, you're not just affecting yourself. You're affecting the entire planet, and the entire planet is affecting you. I'm not saying this in a sense, like I used to trip out on this idea and I used to feel really guilty. I used to think, wow, I'm depressed, I'm miserable, I'm angry, I'm making the world a worse place, I'm making it hard for everyone to live here. But that's not exactly true. What you're doing is you're identifying a frequency that exists. You're identifying a frequency on this planet which needs to be addressed. And if you step up to the plate and you address it and you say, wow, I'm tuning into a very negative frequency, and that's because it's here, it's affecting you. And if you take the conscious responsibility for taking on that energy and transmuting it into something higher, you're doing the entire planet a giant favor. You're actually helping everyone. And think about my work in this way, right? I overcame depression and very cynical thinking. And the way my brain is very logical, it's very easy for me to formulate a cynical belief about the world. It's very easy for me to look at the world and say, burn it the fuck down. Like, I don't want any of this. And it's my natural state, the frequency that I naturally tune into on this planet is one of just cynicism and of not believing in that hope. But that energy destroys the planet, apart from me, right? The energy of cynicism actually does damage to the world. And so it was doing damage to me as well. It's all one thing. So when I tune into that feeling, I say, oh, this is destroying me. This is destroying the world, and this is destroying me, and I feel that energy of destruction. So I stepped into my power. I took responsibility for my energetic output. I took responsibility for my internal state. And I said, how the fuck can I transmute the cynicism into something higher? How the fuck can I transmute this destructive energy, which I naturally feel? How can I wrangle this energy up, and how can I put it toward the production of something good? And that is what Unicult is. So the fact that you are here, the fact that you're maybe a Unicult member, you're watching these videos, you've internalized any of the teachings that I've brought, that is through the transmutation of my naturally cynical energy. And I did that for my own consciousness, but it's having an effect on the world. So all these things are the same thing. It's happening energetically. You know, when you have a thought, it goes into the collective conscious. And I don't say this to make you feel guilty for residing in lower emotions. You're just identifying that those lower emotions exist. You're actually doing work. If you fall into a lower frequency of depression or anger or anxiety or whatever, you're actually doing divine work in the sense that you're like, oh, I'm very sensitive, and I see that this frequency band is here, and you're given the opportunity to transmute it. You are given the opportunity to take responsibility for that energy band within your own consciousness and within the world, and to transmute it. It takes a lot of energy, it takes a lot of work, but you can do it. You can, and the world will be better for it, and you will be better for it. It is really hard to get out of depression. That's because this world there's a lot of lower frequencies in this world. It's a community effort. The more people who get out of depression, the more easy it will be. The more people who truly ascend that vibration and who transmute it and who say, yes, the world is fucked up. Yes, you are disempowered. Yes, it's very scary to live a radical life that is true to your heart. Yes. But the more you can do those things and break out of that energy, every little step of the way toward doing that, you are creating a utopian paradise for yourself and for the world. So I want to talk for a minute about what's happening right now in the US and the systematic oppression of people, especially people of color and Black people and Indigenous people. And I want to talk about the potential that we have for changing the world. There are things that need to happen in the physical world, no doubt. This is true of all manifestation. This is true of all kinds of things. If you can do the work in your own consciousness to understand where you are separated from others, and to have that understanding of what is truly just. And I mean this in the sense, like, my work right now is, to figure out and empathize with police, because it's toxic masculinity gone awry. I mean, 40% of police officers in the US are domestic abusers. And after seeing the footage of these police officers, it's obvious that they are just looking for ways to hurt people. They are looking for ways to cause disruption. They are looking for ways to kill people and to shoot people with rubber bullets and to spray people with pepper spray. Like, they want to hurt people. So it's really hard because I'm not that way, and my energy doesn't reside there, so I feel separate from them. But we're all one. So I understand that for me to see a larger change in the world, I have to do the work in my own consciousness to try to understand and empathize and unify with the toxic masculine energy that is the police force. And I mean, really, like, this is one of we are constantly challenged with concepts of separation. We are constantly challenged with feelings that we are better than other people or that we know what's best. But when we have those reactions and those feelings, then we are actually creating division. We are actually creating something that isn't helpful. What does it help if I say ACAB? What does it help if I say all cops are pigs? What does it help if I say fuck the police? What does that help? What does it help if I burn a cop car? It shows my anger. It shows the fact that I'm not happy with the police force as it is. And I think that's great. But in the longer run, in my own consciousness, is that going to help? What should we do? What should we do? So I'm not here to talk about politics, but I am here to talk about unity. And it's hard to find the effort to be unified in times where you feel like oppression is rampant. It's hard to want to feel unity when you feel like justice isn't anywhere near the situation. But the work that you do in your own consciousness of what is really going on here, the police are actually in pain. They need counseling. They need help. They need a new paradigm. How can I love them as how can I love their child self for wanting to punch people and take their toys because they're jealous and insecure? How can I find that love within myself? This is just one example. If every single protester, I'm not saying anything they're doing is wrong, but if every single protester could meditate on that understanding of why are these people the way that they are? And the effort involved in doing this is immense. And I don't mean to say that it's up to Black people. All I'm saying is that we all have to acknowledge, as a white person, you have to acknowledge, where do you have racist thoughts in your head? Every single white person carries some level of racist understanding, of looking at someone of another race and being like, oh, and making assumptions and making judgments about them. That happens. We live in a very racist society. So you have ideas in your head which you might have preconceptions about. If you see a Black boy on the street and he's wearing a sweatshirt and he's walking kind of angry and you feel scared as a white person, are you justified in that fear? Whereas you might be friends with someone who hits their wife and you don't feel scared of them. You know, I'm just saying, take a look from a higher perspective and try to see your own consciousness. Where do you have the fear? Where do you have any kind of energy, not just toward Black people, but toward people who you perceive as different from yourself? Because what I am preaching right now is something that no one else is preaching. I won't say no one, but what I'm preaching is not where we're at. This is a very futuristic concept, and it's not that hard. But it is very futuristic and it is very hard in this moment of insane duality. And what I'm talking about is unified consciousness, unified understanding. And that unity comes from empathy. And that unity comes from within your own consciousness and your own ability to take what seem to be opposing ideologies and to find empathy and understanding for all sides. If you've ever seen that picture of two people standing on opposite sides of a piece of paper, and one side of the paper is Black and one side of the paper is white, and they look at it and they just argue, it's Black, no it's white, no it's Black, no it's white. But when you look from a higher perspective, you see that it's Black on one side and it's white on another side. That's unity consciousness. The ability to see the fact that everyone's perspective is right and to have empathy for it, and to understand that we need to take all those perspectives and figure out how to unify them. So when you feel negative energy, and when I say negative energy, I mean energy that is disrupting your own ability to be joyous, take that time to feel into it and say, where is this coming from? It might be coming from outside of you. If someone's yelling at you and making you feel bad, that's a very difficult thing to unify. But if you can take whatever responsibility you can take in a situation, and you can transmute your own energy into that of unconditional love, you will turn into an angel. And this doesn't mean put up with violence. Boundaries and standing up for yourself are essential. But if you can transmute your own internal state into unconditional love, if you can stand in the face of an oppressor, of an abuser, and you can say, I see that you're in pain. I love you, and I love myself enough to keep myself safe. So I'm walking away from the situation and I'm not participating, and I'm going to figure out ways to transmute this energy in my own consciousness. If you can not get wrapped up in stuff with your own tumultuous energy, if you can find peace, meditate. Listen to binaural beats, listen to guided meditations, meditate. Still the waters of your internal self. This is the way to change the world. It doesn't seem like it, but it is. It truly is. If every single person did this work, the world would be changed in an instant. So that's the sermon today. I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to take questions today because it's very polarized. A lot of people are very polarized, and that's okay. And thank you for joining me for Cam Church. I hope to see you next week. Uni bless.